taking a political stance is a rite of passage for most college students. But how far is too far to go in the name of your beliefs? The McGill Student Union is definitely riding that line after they chose to support a movement that some Jewish students say make them feel unsafe and unwelcome on campus. We welcome Sam Goldstein onto the program, Director of Legal Affairs for Brith, Canada. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I do want to get to what's happening at McGill University, but first things first off the top here. It has been a terrible week in Israel, terrorist attacks all week. I just want to know, how are you feeling this week with all the news out of Israel?
Yeah, well, like I think with most people around the world, the terrorism and the ongoing terrorism in Israel makes us all very concerned. And it's horrible. It's horrible. What more can one say about it?
What happens in Israel is always a topic of discussion on university campuses. And Sam, let me tell you, I went to university in this city. I went to Concordia University, and let me tell you something. Concordia University, circa 2000 era, and I was working at the radio station, having to deal with the Concordia Student Union at the time. Boy, it was a hotbed of anti-Semitism, and it was one of the worst things about being at the radio station there is having to deal with that component of the student union. Doesn't surprise me. 20 years later, we're still dealing with this. But, of course, this is now at McGill. Why don't you tell our listeners here, what is happening at McGill? Why are you so concerned?
Well, most recently what just happened is that the McGill undergraduate student government called SSMU just passed a referendum, a motion which is in favor of boycotting, divestment, and sanctioning Israel. And so now the McGill Student Union wants to go out and start looking for Jewish supporting organizations or organizations that support Israel and boycott them.
And Sam, on that, this referendum, do you think that referendum was actually representative of the student body?
No, and when you take a look at the actual vote, you had less than 10% of the student undergraduate population voting for it. So you had in whole numbers, you had 2,294 people voting for it. 931 people voted against it. But it's not just the fact that there was, but the real point about this, I think many people are missing, is the fact that just prior to the vote, the McGill Student Union's judicial board, which oversees the bylaws of the SSMU, had an injunction. There was a complaint about the motion itself as being anti-Semitic. The judicial board said, okay, let's pause the election and we're going to look at this motion. And keep in mind, in the past, this motion is already, or motions like this have already twice been found contrary to McGill's human rights and anti-racism policies. What the student committee or election committee then did is arrogate to itself the responsibility of looking into whether the policy was anti-Semitic or contrary to McGill's anti-racism bylaws. That's not the responsibility of that executive election committee. And then decide, it's not really, it's not against any of McGill's policies, so we're going to go ahead with it. So they ignored the injunction that was imposed by their own board. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that this is simply, the students speaking, but it's not the students speaking. It's the student body, SSMU, ignoring their own internal procedures.
We are with Sam Goldstein, Director of Legal Affairs for Brith, Canada. We're talking about situation at McGill University with the Palestine Solidarity Policy that was adopted by the Student Society of McGill University. Sam, what are Jewish McGill students saying to you about how they feel on campus? If they feel unsafe, do they feel targeted?
Well, yes, to quote a line from a very famous movie, they're mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore. Listen, this isn't unique to McGill. As you pointed out, it happened at Concordia. Indeed, a pro-BDS motion was passed at Autumn University in November of last year. SFU, Simon Fraser University, is now in the midst of a policy of the same nature. In the Jewish community, it's not just the Jewish students, but the Jewish community in Montreal and the Jewish community across Canada is not going to take this anymore. And BBC is at the forefront of cracking down on this type of, shenanigans and absolute anti-Semitism and nonsense. We've sent a letter to McGill. We've made it very clear to them that we want to take them to court unless McGill University, the administration, does something against the university, does something against the students. And they can do something against the students. Twice in the past, the McGill University has threatened to withhold student funds. They can do that. There's a memorandum of understanding. The university collects fees, student fees, and then redistributes them to the government, to the student SSMU, the student body. They threatened to withhold funds in the past based upon these sort of shenanigans and anti-Semitic type policies, and SSMU backed down. This time, it seems that SSMU is rather bolder and maybe more foolhardy, and they've gone ahead and passed it. And now we're asking McGill University to put their money where their mouth is. They've said that they're going to withhold funds in the past. Now they've got a student body who have actually passed an anti-Semitic motion, and we want them to withhold student funds.
Sam, I get very frustrated when I look at the sort of university age group, and they look at the Middle East, they look at that region, and with a straight face, they say Israel's the problem. When you think about the most progressive part of the Middle East and all of the good that comes out of Israel, and they look at Israel and they say that's the problem. I get so frustrated. And on social media, I see it nonstop. What goes through your mind when you see that?
Well, thank you for those comments. I totally agree with them. Just in the Stats Canada just released its 2020 statistics on hate crime, and of the police-reported hate crimes targeting religion, Jews represent 62% of that number, and that's up 13% from 2019. Now, people often talk about ethnic nationalists as being the source of the hate crimes against Jews in Canada, but in fact, the source of the increase of the hate crimes, as far as I'm concerned at least, and I think there is some evidence to back this up, is from the progressive left. It's the progressive left that's anti-Semitic, and that's where the anti-Semitism is coming from. And it's motions like this which sort of proves my point. It's these progressives who are anti-Semitic in the form of trying to equate Israel as an apartheid state that are taking over not just the university, but in many respects, many of our civil societies, civil society organizations across Canada and across the world. And I want to make something very clear, Elias. To say that Israel is an apartheid state or to make that equation is the same sort of anti-Semitic and old sort of trope when you say that the Jews are responsible for the bubonic plague in the 14th century. To me, there's no difference between saying that the Jews are responsible for the Black Plague as Israel's an apartheid state. They're both lies. They both have to be called out.
Sam, I hear it all the time, though. Oh, it's not anti-Semitism. We're just pointing out what Israel is doing. They need to be held accountable. What do you say to someone who says that these are separate things, anti-Semitism and Israel?
Well, the Bloc Québécois, and I want to thank them, just came out and endorsed the IHRA. The IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Association definition of anti-Semitism. Among many of the things it defines anti-Semitism as is holding Israel to a double standard. So you could criticize Israeli policy. There's many things you can criticize it about, but when you start questioning the existence of the state, the legitimacy of the state, like saying it's an apartheid state, right? That questions the very existence of the state. That's anti-Semitic. Moreover, I think we have to be very careful with just saying something as, pro-Palestinian versus something, and therefore it's not anti-Israel. Mm-hmm. You've got people chanting, they're just in the McGill Daily, the New University newspaper, which I can understand why Jewish students in McGill are so afraid when you read what's going on in there. They start talking about some Palestinian from Nazareth doing some art exhibit in some building at McGill University. Well, first of all, if he's from Nazareth, the last time I checked, Nazareth was part of Israel proper, right? So he's not Palestinian. He's likely to be an Arab Israeli, and Arab Israelis have full democratic rights in voting. As a matter of fact, there's an Arab party that's part of the actual government in Israel. It's been part of the Knesset, the House of Commons from Israel for many years. But now it's actually, you've got Arab Israelis are actually a member of the government, right? Mm-hmm. So when they're talking about free Palestine, what exactly are they talking about? What land are they talking about freeing? They're talking about freeing Nazareth. They're talking about the land inside Israel. I mean, don't forget, Elias, that those rockets that were shooting at Israel in May of last year from the Gaza Strip were targeted towards Tel Aviv. So are we talking about a free Palestine is getting rid of the Jews in Tel Aviv? that clearly, to me, is anti-Semitism.
Sam, we have to leave it there, but I want to thank you for coming on, and come back anytime, okay? I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sam Goldstein is Director of Legal Affairs for B'nai Brith Canada.